The icy winds of Titan howled around the domed outpost as Dr. Elias Vorn scribbled notes into his hollow journal. The research team had long since returned to Earth, leaving him as the sole occupant of the small research station perched on the methane-rich moon. For 6 years, he had lived in solitude, studying the peculiar bioluminescent algae thriving in Titan's frozen lakes. It was a lonely existence, but Elias found solace in his work. Tonight, the usual amber skies of Titan were aglow with an unexpected intensity. Elias glanced up through the reinforced glass of his observation window. A streak of light cut through the darkness, its trajectory too controlled to be a natural meteorite. It was heading straight for the largest methane lake near the outpost. An impact event, he muttered, adrenaline surging. Grabbing his insulated suit and a portable scanner, he stepped into the airlock, cycling through the decontamination protocols before braving the frigid surface. The journey to the crash site was arduous. The wind tugged at him like a living thing, and the ground beneath his boots crackled with ice. When he reached the edge of the lake, the sight that met him froze him in his tracks, not from the cold, but from awe. A sleek, elongated craft no larger than a personal vehicle rested half-submerged in the viscous methane. Its surface shimmered like liquid mercury, reflecting Titan's dim light. Steam rose as the lake's cryogenic temperatures clashed with the craft's heated hull. Elias approached cautiously, his scanner buzzing with unreadable data. As he drew closer, a soft hum resonated in the air, like a whisper just beyond hearing. The craft's surface rippled, and a hatch opened with a hiss, spilling faint violet light onto the ice. From within emerged a figure humanoid but otherworldly. She was tall and slender, with elongated limbs and silver skin that seemed to pulse faintly, as if lit from within. Her eyes glowed sapphire, filled with both intelligence and pain. She collapsed to her knees, clutching her side where a wound leaked a viscous, violet fluid. Elias rushed forward, kneeling beside her. "Hey, can you understand me?" he asked, his voice muffled by his helmet. The alien looked at him, her expression unreadable, but the answer came not in words, but as a wave of emotion, fear, desperation, and a plea for help. "Stay still," Elias said, his scientist's instincts taking over. He scanned her with his portable device, though it could barely parse the complexity of her physiology. Her vitals were plummeting, her blood failing to oxygenate properly in Titan's atmosphere. She was dying. He needed to act quickly. Elias wrapped her in an emergency thermal blanket and carried her back to the outpost, each step through the storm a test of endurance. By the time they reached the airlock, she was barely conscious, her breathing shallow. Once inside, Elias set her down on the lab's examination table. His scanner provided fragmented data, revealing a biochemical composition unlike anything he'd encountered. Her blood violet and viscous was breaking down. The analyzer offered a grim conclusion: her body required a transfusion of compatible blood to survive. Elias slumped into a chair, staring at the monitor. How could he find compatible blood for an alien? As the scanner continued its analysis, a small alert blinked on the screen, a 72% match with human type O-negative blood. His own blood. "This is insane," he muttered, pacing the lab. The risks were astronomical. Cross-species transfusions were unheard of, and there was no guarantee it would save her. But the image of her sapphire eyes, so full of pain and silent plea, haunted him. With trembling hands, Elias sterilized his arm and set up the equipment. He couldn't ignore the chance to save her, no matter the cost. The process was agonizing. As his blood flowed into her, a searing pain shot through his veins. The alien's body reacted immediately, her breathing stabilizing and her color brightening. Elias watched, his vision swimming, as her wound began to heal, the violet fluid coagulating into a silvery sheen. Finally, her eyes fluttered open. She looked at him, and this time, her voice soft, melodic, and resonant whispered directly into his mind, "You have given me life. I will not forget this debt." Before he could respond, exhaustion claimed him, and the world faded to black. Elias awoke to a throbbing ache in his veins and a faint hum reverberating in his ears. His lab's sterile white walls seemed to pulse with an odd glow, though his tired eyes refused to focus. As he sat up, the events of the previous night came rushing back: the crash, the alien, the transfusion. Korea, he murmured, recalling the name she had projected into his mind. His gaze darted to the examination table, now empty. Panic surged. Had she fled? Was she alive? A soft voice filled his thoughts, soothing yet commanding. I am here. Elias turned, startled, to see Korea standing by the observation window. Her silver skin shimmered, reflecting the faint light of Titan's methane-hazed horizon. She appeared stronger, more radiant, her wounds fully healed. But what captivated Elias most were her eyes, sapphire orbs that seemed to pierce through his very being. How are you?" he stammered, unsure if she could even understand him aloud. Korea turned to face him, her movements fluid and precise. Your blood, she said telepathically, the words forming in his mind like echoes in a canyon. It has saved me, but it has done more. We are connected now. Connected? Elias repeated, a mix of confusion and unease washing over him. He rubbed his temples, which ached with a strange pressure. What do you mean, connected? She stepped closer, her presence both calming and overwhelming. Your blood is not like any I have encountered. It has merged with mine, creating a bond beyond the physical. I feel your thoughts, your emotions, your very essence. Elias blinked, unsure whether to feel amazed or terrified. He recalled the intense dreams he'd had while unconscious visions of vast, crystalline cities suspended in the void, and a species of luminous beings much like Korea. Are those your memories? He asked hesitantly. She nodded. Yes, fragments of my world. My people, the Lithari, once thrived in harmony with the cosmos. But we are fragile creatures, ill-suited to survive outside our home dimension. When I came here, I underestimated the toll your environment would take on me. Without you, I would have perished. Elias swallowed hard, the weight of her words sinking in. He wanted to ask 1,000 questions, but Korea's expression darkened, her sapphire eyes narrowing as she projected a sense of urgency. There is little time to explain everything. I came here with a purpose to warn your kind of a great threat. What threat? Elias asked, leaning forward. Korea's voice trembled with emotion. The Dracari. They are an ancient race of energy predators, devourers of worlds. They are drawn to rich, vibrant systems like yours, consuming all in their path. My people have fought them for eons, but we are too few, too weak. I was sent as an envoy to your world, to offer an alliance. Elias stared at her in disbelief. A race of cosmic predators? The idea sounded like something out of a science fiction novel, yet here she stood living proof of a reality far stranger than anything he'd imagined. Why us? He asked finally. Why Earth? Korea's gaze softened. Your species is at a crossroads. You have the potential for greatness, to ascend beyond your current limitations. But you are also vulnerable, divided, and unaware of the dangers beyond your stars. I believe that with my people's guidance, we could prepare you for the Dracari's arrival. Elias rubbed his face, overwhelmed. And now? What happens now? Korea stepped closer, her presence grounding him despite the storm of questions swirling in his mind. The connection between us has given me strength, but it has also changed you. Your physiology is adapting to mine, unlocking latent potential. Together, we may have the means to create a defense against the Dracari. What kind of defense? Elias asked. Korea hesitated, then extended her hand toward him. A silvery tendril of energy emerged from her palm, reaching out to him. Though instinct told him to pull back, Elias felt an inexplicable pull to accept. Tentatively, he reached out, and the energy coiled around his hand like liquid light. The moment their hands touched, his mind exploded with visions. He saw the Drakari massive, shadowy beings with countless glowing eyes descending upon worlds and leaving barren husks in their wake. He saw Korea's people, the Lithari, wielding shimmering technologies and barely holding the line against the relentless invaders. And then, he saw himself, standing alongside Korea, wielding the same power coursing through her veins. The connection broke, leaving Elias breathless and trembling. That was Dash. A glimpse of what is to come, Korea finished. The transfusion has made you unique, Elias. You now carry a fragment of Lithari potential. If we are to stop the Drakari, you must help me harness it. Elias's mind reeled. He was no warrior, no hero, just a scientist stranded on an alien moon. Yet, as he looked into Korea's unyielding gaze, he felt the weight of her trust, her hope. She had risked everything to reach Earth, and now the fate of two species rested on their bond. Taking a deep breath, he steadied himself. "All right," he said, his voice firm despite the fear gnawing at him. "Tell me what we need to do." For the first time, Korea smiled, a faint, almost imperceptible curve of her lips. "Good," she said. "Then let us begin." And so, on the barren surface of Titan, an alliance was forged, one that would challenge the boundaries of life, love, and the cosmos itself. The next few months were a whirlwind of discovery and preparation. Titan's icy landscapes became the backdrop to an unlikely partnership between Elias and Korea. With her advanced knowledge and his scientific ingenuity, they began to piece together a plan to defend Earth from the Drakari. But amidst their progress, an unexpected revelation would change everything. The hybrid revelation. It began with a subtle shift in Korea's demeanor. She became quieter, more contemplative, and frequently retreated to meditate in the glow of Titan's methane lakes. Elias noticed, but attributed her behavior to the immense pressure they were under. After all, they were racing against time to adapt Lithari technology to humanity's limited capabilities. But one evening, as they worked side by side in the lab, Korea paused and turned to him, her sapphire eyes filled with uncertainty. "Elias," she said, her voice trembling in his mind. "There is something you must know." "What is it?" he asked, setting down his tools. Korea placed her hand over her abdomen, her silver skin shimmering faintly. "Your blood did more than save me. It has changed me." She hesitated, searching for the right words. Lithari reproduction is symbiotic, initiated through deep biological bonds. The transfusion has catalyzed a process within me. A new life is forming. Elias stared at her, uncomprehending. "A new life? Are you saying your I am carrying a child?" Korea confirmed. "A hybrid. A being that is part Lithari, part human. It is unprecedented." The air seemed to leave the room. Elias slumped into a chair, his mind racing. The very idea was overwhelming. He thought of the scientific implications, the ethical questions, and most of all the sheer impossibility of it all. But how? I mean, biologically. He trailed off, shaking his head. "Our species are more alike than you realize," Korea said. "The bond created by your blood awakened something dormant within me, something my people believed lost. This child is a fusion of our essences, a bridge between our worlds." Elias ran a hand through his hair, still trying to process. "And you're sure it's safe? For you, for the child?" Korea's expression grew somber. "It is not without risk. My body was not designed for such a process. The hybrid energy is intense. It is both a source of great power and a strain on my existence." The weapon of hope. Despite the revelation, Korea insisted they continue their work. If anything, she seemed more determined than ever to prepare for the Drakari's arrival. Elias, though still grappling with the news, threw himself into the project, channeling his emotions into their shared mission. They developed a prototype weapon, the Eclipsion Core, a device powered by Lithari energy and designed to disrupt the Drakari's unique biology. But the core required an immense energy source, one far beyond what Titan or Earth could provide. It was during one of their late-night sessions that Korea revealed the solution. "The hybrid child's latent energy," she said. "It is vast, more than enough to power the core." Elias froze. "What? You want to use your child as a power source?" "That's not what you think," Korea interrupted. "The child's energy can be channeled without harm. It is a gift and inheritance from both our species. But the process must be precise. If something goes wrong—" She didn't finish the sentence, but Elias understood the implication. The risk wasn't just to the child, it was to Korea as well. "No," he said firmly. "There has to be another way." Korea placed a hand on his shoulder, her touch both comforting and resolute. "Elias, this child is not just ours. It is a beacon of hope for both our peoples. If its energy can save countless lives, then we must be willing to take that chance." Elias's heart twisted. He had come to care deeply for Korea, and the thought of losing her or their child was unbearable. But as much as he wanted to protect them, he knew she was right. The Drakari were closing in, and they had no other options. The first encounter. The Drakari's arrival was heralded by a sudden disturbance in Titan's skies. The methane clouds churned violently as space itself seemed to ripple and tear. A massive, shadowy ship emerged, its surface alive with shifting, organic patterns. Pulsing eyes glared from its hull, radiating malice. Korea and Elias watched from the outpost, their expressions grim. "They have found us," Korea said. "The core must be activated now." Elias nodded, his hands trembling as he adjusted the device. Korea lay on the platform connected to the core, her body acting as a conduit for the hybrid child's energy. A brilliant light surrounded her, illuminating the lab in a kaleidoscope of colors. As the core powered up, the Drakari ship unleashed a barrage of energy, shaking the outpost to its foundation. Korea screamed, her body writhing as the hybrid energy surged through her. Elias rushed to stabilize the device, his own veins burning from the residual energy coursing through their bond. "Hold on, Korea," he shouted, his voice cracking. The core reached full capacity, emitting a pulse of energy so powerful that the lab's walls buckled. The pulse struck the Drakari ship, ripping through its defenses and disintegrating it in an explosion of dark matter. For a moment, silence reigned. Elias turned to Korea, who lay motionless on the platform. Panic gripped him as he rushed to her side. Her breathing was shallow, her skin dimmed to a dull gray. "Korea," he whispered, shaking her gently. Her eyes fluttered open, weak but alive. "It worked," she said, her voice faint. "But the child needs time." Elias's gaze shifted to her abdomen, where a faint, golden glow pulsed beneath her skin. The child had survived, but the ordeal was far from over. The cost of survival. The outpost was in ruins, but the core had done its job. For now, Earth was safe. Yet Elias couldn't shake the feeling that this was only the beginning. As he carried Korea to a makeshift bed, he couldn't help but marvel at her resilience. She had risked everything not just for her species, but for his as well. And now, their child, the first of its kind, represented a fragile hope for the future. As Korea drifted into an uneasy sleep, Elias sat beside her, his mind heavy with questions. What would the child become? Could it truly bridge the gap between their worlds? And, most importantly, was this newfound connection between them strong enough to withstand the trials yet to come? For now, all he could do was wait. The battle was won, but the war was far from over. The outpost had become a haven of fragile hope. Weeks passed since the core's activation, and Korea spent most of her time resting, her body struggling to sustain the hybrid child. Elias devoted himself to her care, using what remained of the lab's resources to monitor her condition. One stormy Titan evening, Korea called to him with an urgency he hadn't heard before. "It is time," she said, her voice weak but resolute. Elias's heart pounded. He had prepared for this moment as best as he could, studying every scrap of literary biology Korea had shared with him. But nothing could prepare him for the awe and terror of what was about to unfold. As Korea lay on the makeshift birthing platform, the lab filled with an ethereal glow. The child's energy radiated outward, causing instruments to hum and lights to flicker. Elias worked feverishly, following Korea's telepathic guidance, stabilizing her as waves of luminous energy rippled through her body. Finally, with a burst of golden light, the child was born. Elias shielded his eyes, overwhelmed by the brilliance. When the glow subsided, he saw the newborn a small, delicate being wrapped in a shimmering cocoon of light. The child's form shifted subtly, blending traits of both parents. Her skin was a pale silver, like Korea's, but with a human softness. Her eyes opened, revealing a deep, iridescent gold that seemed to hold the wisdom of the stars. Tiny, translucent wings shimmered briefly before folding back into her body, a remnant of her literary heritage. Korea reached out weakly, her hand trembling as she touched the child. "Elara," she whispered. "A name from my people, meaning light of two worlds." Elias cradled Elara in his arms, tears streaming down his face. He had never believed himself capable of fatherhood, let alone of a being so extraordinary. Yet, as he looked into her golden eyes, he felt an unshakable bond, a love that transcended words. The first steps Elara grew rapidly, her hybrid physiology advancing at an accelerated rate. Within weeks, she was walking, speaking, and displaying abilities neither human nor literary could fully comprehend. She could manipulate energy, shaping light into tangible forms, and her telepathic abilities surpassed even Korea's. Despite her otherworldly nature, Elara was a curious and compassionate child. She spent hours exploring the outpost and Titan's frozen landscape, marveling at the methane lakes and ice formations. Elias taught her about Earth, sharing stories of its vast oceans, lush forests, and diverse cultures. Korea, in turn, shared tales of the literary, their crystalline cities, and their ancient struggles against the Drakari. But Elara's rapid development wasn't without its challenges. Her energy sometimes surged uncontrollably, causing equipment to short-circuit and cracks to form in the walls. Elias worked tirelessly to help her control her abilities, while Korea guided her in understanding the responsibilities that came with her power. The Drakari return. Just as they began to find a semblance of peace, a grim realization shattered their calm. The Drakari weren't defeated, only delayed. Korea's energy signature had drawn their attention, and a second wave of the ancient predators was closing in on the solar system. This time, the Drakari were more numerous, their massive ships blotting out Titan's skies. Korea, still weakened from the birth, looked to Elias and Elara with solemn determination. "We must fight together," she said. "Our survival depends on it." Elara stepped forward, her golden eyes blazing. "I will help," she said firmly. "It is my purpose." Elias's heart ached at the thought of his daughter facing such danger. "She's just a child," he protested. "There has to be another way." But Korea placed a hand on his shoulder, her gaze steady. "She is more than a child, Elias. She is our greatest hope." Reluctantly, Elias agreed. Together, they devised a plan to harness Elara's energy to amplify the Eclipsion core once more. This time, however, the process required direct intervention from Elara, who would act as the conduit for the weapon's power. The final stand. As the Drakari descended upon Titan, the outpost became a battleground. Elias and Korea worked frantically to activate the core while Elara faced the approaching predators. She stood on the icy plains, her small form dwarfed by the looming shadows of the Drakari, yet her presence radiated an unshakable strength. The battle was unlike anything Elias had ever seen. Elara's golden energy clashed with the Drakari's dark void, each collision sending shockwaves across the moon's surface. Despite their overwhelming numbers, the Drakari seemed unable to overpower her. Inside the lab, Elias and Korea finished the final adjustments to the core. As the device roared to life, Korea collapsed, her strength finally giving out. Elias caught her, his heart breaking as she whispered, "Protect her, Elias. No matter what." Outside, Elara unleashed a final surge of energy, creating a bridge between herself and the core. The weapon emitted a blinding pulse, enveloping the Drakari in a wave of golden light. One by one, their ships disintegrated, leaving the sky clear once more. A new beginning. When the dust settled, Elara returned to the outpost, her glow dim but her spirit unbroken. Korea, though weakened, opened her eyes and smiled faintly at her daughter. "You have fulfilled your destiny, Elara," she said. "And yet, your journey is only beginning." With the Drakari threat temporarily vanquished, Earth and the Lithari began to establish contact, their alliance forged through the sacrifices of Elias, Korea, and Elara. The hybrid child became a symbol of unity, her existence proof that two species could come together to overcome even the greatest of challenges. Years later, Elias stood on Earth's surface, watching as Elara prepared to lead the first interstellar mission to the Lithari homeworld. She turned to him, her golden eyes filled with gratitude and love. "Thank you, Father," she said. "For everything." Elias smiled, his heart swelling with pride. "Go show them what we're capable of." As Elara's ship disappeared into the stars, Elias felt a profound sense of peace. Together, they had not only survived, but paved the way for a brighter future, a future shaped by the light of two worlds.